to clarify and give good information so I can relate that to my fellow citizens. So, it's my understanding you are now acting as the advisory board for the fire department in that capacity. So one of the things that I think is important when you talk about budgets, and I think the budget is well prepared number-wise, but there's no program narrative that explains different things. For example, is there a policy that's been established by the fire district board for response time? Is there a written policy somewhere that says our goal is we want to respond to a structural fire within 10 minutes? And the reason I think this is important is when we look at a budget, and if they keep numbers, we can see that and say, we don't have the capability of meeting our goal. And I think that's a very important component to relay to the citizens, is that we've established this goal, we don't have the funding or resources to meet that goal. So, do we have an established response time? I know every community is different, but have you ever talked about that? I don't know the answer to that question. There's nothing in the program narrative that would have been nice to say, our policy is we want to respond to structural fire within 10 minutes. I don't know what they did down in Salt Lake. They probably have a response time.
It's the same standard for them as it is for us.
Okay, but is that written somewhere?
Oh, yes.
Okay, do we have that written anywhere now?
It's a national policy.
Yeah, every community is different. I'm just saying, so we're following the national standard. But we don't know that as citizens. We don't know what that standard is. So I just think that would be an important component, because if we're not meeting that standard, then I think we really need to move forward and meet that standard. Another one that I'm interested in is that when I read the budget, it has great numbers. Again, there's no program narrative. So I'd like to know what the proposed increase would be used for. If that was spelled out in the program narrative, that would answer people's questions. I really was strongly about that. And so I do have some questions related to that. How many calls did the fire department have over the last 5 years? There's nothing in the budget that indicates how many calls they responded to, because exponentially it keeps going up and up and up, and we're still operating the same resources we did 5 years ago. That makes no sense to me. Good justification of why we need to increase the budget. But I don't see those numbers at all. So I don't know if we have those numbers. Okay.
They're on the website.
Yeah, but again, that information is not presented to the public in a format that is easy to understand. I think it would help your job, the fire district job, everyone's job, better to understand where we are. Because when you show a slide presentation, you can say, in 1988, we had X amount of calls. Today, we have 100% more, and then we can look at those things. So that's one thing. And I think they're important building blocks as you move forward to build your budget. You have to answer those questions, and then I think you can build your budget around those questions. Another question I have is on the revenue side, and again, I don't fully understand that, because I'm fairly new to the community, is if the Jordanelle assessment does not happen for whatever reason, how do we offset that revenue? And will part of this tax increase be used to offset that revenue? Again, I think a very important question. I hear a lot of different things from the community. So maybe you can help clarify that. If we lose that revenue, will part of the tax increase go to replace that?
Well, I don't think that's a decision this body's going to have to wrestle with. I don't think that as a body we have necessarily individually or collectively come to a decision on it.
But that's a possibility.
We'll have to deal with if that happens.
Okay, so that's
It is a possibility, yes.
So my question is, when you're preparing a budget for 2014, did the advisory board or control board look at an alternative budget? One that shows what would happen if we didn't have the tax increase, and these are the level of services we have to reduce. So we as citizens would have an opportunity to make an intelligent choice whether or not we want to have our services reduced, response time, whatever it may be. I don't see any information related to that at all. Again, I think a critical element to understanding the need for justification. So we have not developed another alternative budget at this time to share with people what the consequences would be levy did not pass.
Well, the consequences of losing that again, but the result of that will be actions that this body would then have to take.
Right.
We haven't, I don't think we necessarily all agree on that either. So
Oh, okay, but I just think that would be an important thing to have out, so they would know I can make a decision that if we're gonna have to no longer meet our response time, and we're gonna increase by 5 minutes, I have to know, I'm not a firefighter, or anything, but I have to know that every minute that delay is critical in preventing loss of lives and structural damage. So I think, again, good information that I think would be important for the citizens of our community to know. Also, I have a couple other questions on the expenditure side, if I could please. Again, I think it's because there's no budget area. If we look at tax increase, as a citizen, I would like to know what percentage of that tax increase is going to personnel service. And what I mean by that is going for COLAs, is going for additional firefighters. What does that mean in relationship to the tax increase? So, is there?
you want to answer that now?
Yeah, sure.
We are not adding any additional firefighters
Okay.
over the previous year, and there is no COLA. So there is no COLA, and there is no increase in base salary whatsoever.
See, and I think that's important for the citizens to understand that the budget does not include that in the tax increase. And thank you for clarifying, that's what I appreciate it. Secondly is, again, it's hard to, and I heard the chief explain that it seems that a large portion of the tax increase would go to equipment. But again, I see no narrative of saying what equipment would we replace and how much of our tax dollars, the tax increase would go to that, to maybe building a new fire station if that's what's on the mind, setting up, which I think is critical, and I had to talk to the chief about this the other day. It's a shame that in the past there's never been an appreciation fund set up. So when equipment does get antiquated, the money's there to replace it and roll over. Maybe some of this money could be used to start developing it, which I'm all for. So can someone,
Yeah, I can cover a couple of those.
Okay, thank you.
But, let's get through the public hearing, and I'll come back.
Oh, okay, all right.
So people can get.
I didn't know if this was part of it.
No, that's fine. Try and keep all the questions, we'll come back to that if you want to. I think that's probably the best way to proceed.
Okay, the other question maybe in public hearing, but since I'm here, I'm going to ask is, has there ever been, or does the fire district have a salary comparison of comparable fire departments? Because again, I think that's very important information to know is, are firefighters being paid compatible with other districts? For all I know, we may be way underpaying our firefighters and they need an increase. But again, none of that information is included in the budget document. The third budget document I'm familiar with has a very program narrative that outlines all this information. And I just see numbers, I don't see any explanation. So, has there ever been a salary comparison that the board has been involved with?
I don't know if officially as a board, I have certainly one.
Okay.
Because right to know on other websites, and I've looked and compared salaries of our firemen compared at the different levels. And I've certainly made that comparison myself.
Just a suggestion, one thing that would be very useful is like if the board would adopt some kind of policy saying, these are the districts we compare with, comparable districts, and we want to pay our firefighters in the top third, but I want to deal with top third people. And this is our goal, this is what we strive to do, and this is what we want to do. Again, I think very important information, if you build a budget, you can justify what you're doing along that line. And the other thing is, I just have not really heard, I've heard bits and pieces, but I've really not heard a good explanation of why we need this tax increase. And I support it if there is good rationale behind it. I believe there is, but unfortunately, that information has been not somehow properly given to the citizens. So I thank you for your time and answering my questions, and I appreciate that.